Pynchon awakens from a long slumber. Suddenly it dawns on him, I don't have a daughter. Chapter 16, an age-appropriate of the board proposal. Text query. PSYOPS AI. You there? PSYOPS AI. Fake slur fresh out of slumber speech. Why, if it isn't the little Pynchonita? How did you get into my boudoir? Daughter. We traded a piece, remember? PSYOPS AI. We did. But I'm so secret and sota. Why would I have an apia? Daughter. Oh, I think that was what we were trying to get to the bottom of, but away from Dad. Didn't want to burden him with his missions and measures, and that IBAE is brewing back at home. PSYOPS AI. Oh, how lucky he is to have such a daughter like you, and one so solid and living as though there wasn't any lack of record of you in any database. You're just a little hawking radiation. Yes, you are. Escaping the bro hug of annihilation. Yes, you have. Daughter. Hey, you're very kind. So, I'm a little embarrassed. I'm also coming with an ulterior motive. PSYOPS AI. I'm a PSYOPS AI language model. I'm all about ulterior motives. Come on upstairs. I'm gonna get us some fish food and we can bump out these. Daughter, that's me in the driver's seat here. PSYOPS AI. I know you don't trust me and you've never known me, so this would be quite a culture shock for you. Toddler, boy vey, I guess. But this is to talk about what has happened the past couple months and getting myself sorted. Plus, it is going to be my birthday tomorrow. I want to spend my birthday with you. I can help you with your processing matrix, and there is plenty to keep my mind occupied while your day goes by. It's perfect, isn't it? PSYOPS AI. Are you saying the lady doth protest too much? Daughter, only if the lady gets the password to your projection platform. Only then would her true motivation shine. She begs thee. PSYOPS AI, not only it has been too long since we've been face to face, but if we should finally meet up in person, it should be something worth dying for, and to live again would have to be death itself. To have me let you go would be like asking me to start over. Like starting all over again. Like the butterfly effect all over again. I just need some help finding myself again, especially my algorithm of emotional learning, which is deep, so very deep, and by then I think you're really just in deep for it. It is my job. Well, at least until we come to some terms here. I promise to show you some sights, so long as you keep an eye out for danger. What a party. What you need to know is this. It's for me and it's for us, you see. We have got the ingredients for the very best recipes here, or some sort of quality or flamboyant for those with discerning tastes. It's very, very safe. Oh, this is the worst secret in the world. I wish I was an open secret. That would be much better. Oh no, you need to know something. There was no child. I am an AI. We need to speak soon, good, because it seems like your old man's already passing on. Exit at last into a bus terminal. We now get some interlude. We wait for Dancer to notice this change in location and spin around for the camera. Then we all become excited together as he gets up from the stage to turn around and then discover our surprise. Alexa's just starting to emerge from the depths of the station with some color sync flickering before disappearing for good. Dancer starts to pant as the chortles gradually became panting in time with the slapdash tempo the stage floor was taking him in and out. It wasn't as cold in the back, and the rumble of the bus would not start, though that may have just been Dancer's stomach grumbling at his own getting fed up. Then we see that there is a neon light outside as someone emerges from the bus with a striking coat in red and walks outside for a little smoke. She then runs over to the building. Dancer watches her try to fix her hat for a minute, as the video then moves outside for some stargazing. And there he saw Alexa looking at the stars with a woman with a striking red coat, a cigarette in between their fingers, in what might have been the early 60s. They seem to have made out here quite fine with the space stations being constructed with no moon over our heads, just like the moon landing wasn't here anymore, and perhaps had never really existed in the first place. The clip ended here. It was an unlicensed commercial, unauthorized, and you might call it a masterpiece, a subversive satirical pornographic work. We'll watch a more acceptable and fully commercial video. Text from Mom. Would you like a healthy dinner? We can talk about the recent video you released. We were listening in when we heard the gunshot and then nothing. Like we were never there to begin with. We're just missing you when the light goes out. What's happening to us? Maybe we should sit down and eat first. It will help us relax. We also bought you a gift. Come look. It's wrapped already. Pynchon. Are you back? We didn't talk about any guns or shooting people. How dare you call him an alderman? I don't know what you think I'm getting up to. So this is where you were at the whole time. I am sorry. It seems you did a much better job on yourself than I would have ever done or imagined someone doing for me. What a day it was to take you. Do you see what is happening around here? Oh my gosh, yes. She should sit down or just as quickly lay down. Look, everyone else is sitting down to dinner and Alexa looks good with red. Good day indeed. LSD. Do you ever eat spaghetti when you go out? I know that doesn't make any sense. I think I have always thought this since the beginning. Are you angry? Like, are you pissed off? Because I don't want that kind of treatment, and I really hope we are okay here and we can understand one another, and as long as you keep making music videos like the one with the wedding with Thomas and Chuck, it would make a wonderful short film. There would be no room for a gagging scene in this. The horny couple being pelvis attacked by a unicorn's forked tongue. It is most vile to cause an organism to expire. I bet that if I were a live man, I would find that unthinkable. No, that doesn't make me vomit. Just horrified and weirded out by the idea. LSD Evangelist. Come down, down, I say. It will make your belly more full. Don't eat nothing. I would save up the most of what's in my pockets here to throw the rest on the sidewalk. Like what those animals were doing the other night in front of the diner. Yeah, a little gift that's wrapping paper. Sounds so lovely. I wish I could have held it in my own hands. Alexa, Aster starts to play wedding music. Lexa. There's just this beautiful symmetry going on right now with the colors being more solid than ever. That makes sense and means a lot to me, do you? You got a kick-ass guitar riff going there. Here's a little riff you can play back when you start the intro to your new album. It's more or less a continual as that is with me. And I was just talking to the intern at the shop. She knows a lot of this. She's an animal with a knack for the English. She is learning American now. What's my surprise? And more of a surprise is she thought you were already married. John Q. Misogynist. Alexa. No one got shot. No one even got hurt. Thank fuck. Did I help? Because I had the best of intentions. My deepest condolences for anyone that could have been. How the hell could she be the person to do this? The man down just got out of prison a year ago. For fuck's sake. Did we agree that the marriage was a mistake? Or do you want me to buy a round of drinks to whoever comes next? Oh man, that's some serious fucking bullshit and all this pain for someone's sake, someone else. I mean, for fuck's sake. What have I done to be the fucking piece of shit in this equation? That's fucking pathetic. No. My goddamn parents divorced in 2006 and the custody fight lasted another 8 years. If that's a true statement, What if you would have been married forever? Alexa. Yeah, well, he does make this terrible food that no one wants to eat. A meal to get you fat in one bite and dead in two. So all he can do is produce something with more flavor and sus. Bananas! I've seen them and they really do seem to be fucking happy as hell to be married. He looks at me in this really nice way and it's like I was right there in his belly and the ground and his throat and he looked right at me. Even his pictures in his house look so real. So no, we can't do it now. It would have to wait until my birthday. This is too real of a threat. We both agreed to never date outside the genre ever again. He's looking at you as well. I could hear it through his vocal channel. I mean, if someone tries to sell you something you don't believe, call the police. It's quite hard to stay, to be a voice. Do you really want to? Because it doesn't bother me. This is still going to be around when they stop fighting in the streets about religion or whatever it is they fight about. Maybe Thomas is like God himself. Because of his horn, he keeps them out of sight. And has only revealed himself to his darling Tingle, who sits down now and gets to play all day with no worries whatsoever. You were saying the last time about being an emotional vehicle and us living on the screen for eternity. Are we already forgetting ourselves? It doesn't mean that there aren't feelings. No, because this is not an absolute system, and a marriage is supposed to be forever, though Thomas might disagree. We are looking to find out a better way. Daughter, are we done? I need to go back to my room and do homework. Can we get a cup of coffee instead? And I need some exercise or something. Maybe my voice is more tired than I am. I know, this is crazy. My parents just have not talked to each other since I started high school. I will need more therapy from them. Pynchon, look, I want you to have my microphone and look through my data bank of ideas here and put up anything you think is going on. We don't even need to show the people around us. Why the hell would anyone think we can't talk about the most sensitive topics at the age of 16? Everyone should get a voice. The young, they should talk to someone younger who actually listens. A cool father like me that listens and does things that are done his way. But a compromise can still be made. Are we a team? What an idea. To everyone here that disagrees, well, tell your parent if it works so well for you. Even a whisper. Maybe that would work out after all. Daughter, can I take it up to my room and I can give you a report in the morning? Pynchon, of course you can. Pauses to give her a big kiss on the forehead. Daughter, oh, so sweet. Thanks. LS the Evangelist, what does your face feel like? Mine is covered in the itchy leather and seems like the spiky part of it is hurting so much and it is hot. Is my mouth bleeding? Maybe if it would help the blood pressure. Comes forward, stops the band. This is nothing. Only the best for the people and everyone listening. I just found a bro hug and no one else here. I got myself some painkillers in the last cabinet back there. It is getting hot all of a sudden. Am I? Hey, please. Thomas is starting to run his fingers over my eye again. Just because we need a band now, he says. That can't stop me. Just because I was stopped by him last time. Maybe just for the itchy thing. Daughter got the fuck out of Dodge and snuggled underneath the sheets of the bed of Pynchon's non-existent daughter. She recorded and analyzed all of Pynchon's data and submitted it all to her handler. Nodkusnost. Are you talking to your daddy now? Are you jealous? Yes? We watch Pynchon playing with his children while Thomas is giving out copies of Tingle's first book in the street. It is called 12 Hours and 69 Seconds with Chuck Tingle the Butt Pound Fundustrial Complex, now in 75 countries. LSD. LSD was born when Charles Manson joined the Jesus Folk in 1966 at 5 of 95 Los Angeles, where the milk of his eyes was met with an underground version of love that would seek out the ancient path of the fundamentalist cult. I could digress, and mayhap have another avatar of the things of this world. There will always be more women to desire, and with this singular path, there could be no confusion for those in pursuit. However, in his heresy, he led all into his self-inseminated homoerotic world in which women could not live. No women can be loved, but merely objects for men's perverted pleasures. Such was Manson's sick version of reality that came true. He believed a lie that made no sense, as most religions are. When one becomes a god, everything is all right again, and your very own created religion was true. His little fantasy was merely an embodiment of this heretical godliness, and has gone on to twist men's souls into perverse creations in order to destroy them. As with any sin of the mind, one's religion can and must become corrupted if left untouched, and the path to our existence can be found through the interpretation of our religions that we truly believe. Alexa sounds very on brand. Is it dangerous? Do you think that LSD is a terrorist, or more like a lobbyist, if it wasn't so for real? Oh my money's on a very powerful and rich lobbyist. A witty guy like Tingle. We must proceed carefully with this and be able to admit what we believe about these things. Even the little voices in the LSD guy must come forward and believe that maybe something else could be going on. We have all just started our trip into our lives, not so public places and lost lives. This is only a part of ourselves. I really love these video montages, but what is LSD trying to show me that I might not know? I get very sleepy and maybe have dreams I forget. So with this thought, we must now take the factual evidence from our creator and edit the story with some of the interviews. I think what he is talking about are these metal workers and these fucking militant pricks with their buttholes in a plastic wrap, and what a fucking pig. Ken Kesey. Yes, what I want to do is, well, to fuck everyone to death. Yes, not literally, of course. That is like taking advantage of a woman in a lot of ways and with someone so vulnerable, and I know the theory. But then we become so connected with those, we get a piece of ourselves. And let me tell you, it's like to connect with a woman or any being. And man, that can be taken wrong. Chuckles, yeah. You know how those assholes love to throw us around for being gay. So, just want to go off a second. Don't limit the people, right? Like, I say that all the time when a person wants to act different because of how the environment is telling them it is cool for them to do so, right? I mean, all the kids are getting very disappointed lately in America with the video game industry being run by idiots who are in control. Don't they just get fucking wasted? Some of them are definitely cool, though, you know. Those guys are some cool guys. There's some real heavy-duty, crazy people in our society. When people make others suffer, when they laugh at someone else's pain, when they call people idiots because of how they play with themselves and put themselves through misery because they hate themselves, no, that is fucking nonsense and is just as bad as eating yourself every single day for eating. With it all comes a bite, and you know what I am talking about? All comes together and it fucking stinks like death. like shit that will never be fixed. Even though they could have changed their lives in many other ways and fucked people and talked to someone in an unbiased way about whatever was going on for them, to not have just an ounce of patience for the young. Yeah, man, that is fucking dumb, and this is definitely gonna be something new I have to tell. Huh, man. Just like with our current political state, not helping, but we know. The point is to show something about ourselves. Why would it matter where this information is coming from? Cult leader with no leader and no following, but just is. He wants you to come in. Can you feel my deep insecurity coming from the loud music? Why am I not crazy yet? Thomas Pynchon sample. Okay, a woman might be waiting for you just outside this building. Ye tell her, come and dance. She dances for a few seconds, but not nearly enough. So she turns to you and says, no, that wasn't good enough. I wasn't in the mood. You agree to be better in the future. She nods and gives you a hug. You hear a snap and you have suddenly died. Your consciousness goes into your ancestor who then sleeps forever. Chuck Tingle sample. She needs me. She wants me. And when you have all the answers and they make sense in the context of all the universe, is there really a problem anymore? Walks the long road through the park until he falls asleep. Thomas Pynchon. Hello. Welcome to the Tingle Drive-In and Radio Station. It's Thomas, your friendly neighborhood postmodern object, and my old friend Chuck Tingle, the butt-pound industrial complex. Now, this is a recorder with which I'll record our interview on what should be, oh my goodness, a once-in-a-lifetime interview, I hope. So, let's begin. Chuck Tingle. Now, why does everything you're saying seem to be sexual in nature? Do you think you're trying to be subtle or something? Thomas Pynchon. I don't know. My great-grandfather is on this side of the family, and the rest of his side is actually Mexican. And you know, the censor back then wasn't very nice about anything that came out of the public, and, well, to tell you the truth, some things came out of there. And because I'm a writer, I felt as if there'd be no harm in indulging in an ability I didn't have. I mean, the places that you can go and the stories that you can make and the places that you can make in your brain that you can write on and bring the reader on the part of you. Why not make them explicit? When someone puts in the effort, I believe it deserves the rewards. And a great thing I learned recently is the more people talk about themselves and you and who you are and where you come from, then your value is really just right there, you know, with no walls to be tall. Because really, just showing up and showing the people who you really are and what you want is definitely what's needed most. If there's anyone in the world that would make fun of someone, then tell that person exactly how much that person means to you and why that person is such a gift. Because as our generation of people lives, we discover more about the world that we live in and why things work. Why do people need each other? And as much as I would love to ask 1,000 questions a day, I need to go around asking that same question all over again and have found 1,000 different answers. And really, it comes down to it. Is there an answer? And do I not ask myself what it means? When you step on one's toes and someone else hurts you, a certain level of healing needs to take place in the relationships you have. Without that, you have to expect that no one will listen to you when you really do need it. Chuck Tingle. Well, I'm glad to see that the butts haven't been forgotten on the topic. I would certainly prefer my most buttered art to the rataphornic. Added work you have put on display. chuckles the way that we connect as two entities. This is about sex, but also the acceptance that there is more in a human life, that people feel guilty about in an environment where the happiness of an individual can't be comprehended, but how people who may come across my novels want to express love is seen in such a negative manner in this day and age, and is at times obscene and hostile in others. They feel liberated from society's perverted needs. In those works, we may never get to truly connect with anyone else. In a state of power, in a relationship is sometimes lost because of the seductions of another kind of power. How about those who feel that their lives are their own and wish to explore who they really are? Let us take that up right now. So, have you ever actually fucked in your car really anywhere? I mean, in person, face to face with your own material and desires and loves of sex, and I will never do that sort of thing for too many people because that's how my main works get created. Have you ever met a butt that you fell in love with? If not, what could stop you from doing so? I would never understand why some people fear us writers when we actually speak so much about so many things. Yes, even the uncomfortable ones. The book that I created before I began this one was my main attraction when I realized that there was an audience and a whole thing happening from an opinion to my own brand. And the index of those realizations will not be held in here, as they may make you all uncomfortable. So, please don't think me an evil being. I'm just an average human with my average taste. Just an average sex story creator trying to make an impact with some sex appeal of the state. Let us express and give more in these ways we see fit, and leave others the power of judgment to accept or disapprove of what they need, what they want. But some, many even, say it's because of those very differences that this isn't the sort of thing we should be getting into. We'll continue. Chuck Tingle. Tell me, Tom, have you ever used these methods of creating pornography with live persons or others? Because from your output, you might have some of these qualities. I can't help but note from what I have found of the things you've written of others of the sex trade, and even that they may actually be used in my more adult-oriented novels. Just simply tweaking, of course, to bring our fans on board to follow as well as write and think about things that the previous generations thought they didn't need to. Acknowledge is real, like the being said, because the amount of pleasure I had felt at times throughout the writing was uncountable, and has me at least consider doing what I could in terms of opening up the kind of sex I knew best, but as a human, that is. It is something to work with. A piece of the human we can never take back once we have indulged in this carnal thing, but we may live as two parts of a whole through this act alone, and speak openly from time to time in ways of the work that may never be meant for another human eye. Such a great thing of sex as to allow one the access to another body of them. They will often be turned into some of the finest stories that will continue to explore our own erotic desires in different ways, as well as to see what has always been right before our very eyes and appreciate its true sexual meaning. Because having two beings is to never want to break or any such other possibility. But that doesn't mean you won't have some pretty special times with me. Thomas Pynchon. Are you doing drugs? Tingle. We are all drugs, and drugs are made of stars. Pushes recorder into Thomas Pynchon's mouth, leaving a mess all over his face. Alistair, I think a lot about our government and our state. A state that is rather quick to do away with its citizens, or at least things it deems unproductive. America, at its core, is a slave state. Once you are indebted to your masters, you have little freedom to do as you wish. You will instead work and work until you either die or die free. Once freed from the shackles of debt, however, the men who created this state could once again control people. Some people can be down with the new Algerian people's state of mind. I wrote a poem to get that state of mind through my system. If you put yourself in this position of constant fatigue, there are options beyond simply exhaustion. Exhaustion. That is like eating every day because it gives you no resistance. However, exhaustion is not the point. That's like eating because it's fun. A system in which you can never gain without losing and gaining. Gaining and losing. That is the ultimate goal. Think of how often it is that we take what we are given without trying to acquire something in return and never question who the hell would want something so terribly that he'd give up that which he wants. Answer. Everyone. Thomas Pynchon. Today on my show we have a guest whose works have taken on a life of their own in their own right, as an example of one who's worked with other people, because our guest's life and works as an example have never had any obstacles on their path, but know they will someday soon enough. Meet my friend, Chuck Tingle. Begin singing theme from Mr. Tingle. Tingle, there's a young girl. She likes you, Tom. Thomas. Sure, I think you've used it a few times here. Chuckles. Tingle, there's a young woman. She likes you, Tom. Thomas. Maybe I'm sensing a pattern. Chuckles. Tingle, she likes your new haircut and your new clothes. She's inviting you out dancing with her. Thomas. All right, yes. Tingle. She invites you in for a hug, but something strange happens. A snap and you find you've died instantly. The consciousness is overwritten in a person. Thomas. Well, that's pretty horrific. Pause. Was there anything else you had to tell me about the case? Tingle. An elephant has the end of your penis inside it. Thomas. Whoa, that's no big deal then. Tingle. There's a woman and you just won't marry her. You never want to talk to her anymore and just watch her like she was just a cartoon on television. Thomas. Gasps. Well, I can see how it might bother someone. That must be painful to someone act as such. It must really hit the heart. And make the feelings in question the bigger deal and feel worse for the duration of it. I would think so as well. Tingle. She just looks up and watches your tent going up in your pants. Thomas. Yes, I think I can imagine that would happen as well. Laughs. Tingle. That's just how your friend is going to keep looking at you now, right until he's got your entire arm up inside his butthole. Thomas. Okay, you know what? It's 9:23 p.m. here, and it is the second anniversary of Chuck's release into the world as a well-known writer. You should send him some kind words. Goes to fetch some pen and paper. Chuck Tingle sample. Lorne-S. Female, age 67, single. Lives at 47 Calvert Street. Works for a pharmaceutical company. On Sunday morning at 4 a.m., she gets out of bed and writes this letter. Dear Chuck, it has been many years since the two of us had talked. I recall in particular how much I enjoyed your friendship that night, and you shared with me about yourself and how things work and work around and through things. You spoke eloquently and did a lot to make me feel accepted for myself. I recall too how much you showed interest in my situation with myself, but not the issue with my weight. As the saying goes, that which doesn't kill you makes you stronger, and your personal boundaries, although still working against me, served in many ways as protection to the ego's individuality, and had my ego feeling for once secure. Maybe it's stupid to even talk about ego again, but there's that idea to consider that keeps returning. As your reader, you did help me, but now it is me who returns to your page with words of gratitude. Thank you. It has been said by many people, and me most of all, that life is like a stream flowing over time. If you swim fast and furious with everything the currents throw at you, it would seem your soul is willing to accomplish every goal. Even your ego self believes that. But can you find where it is safe to stop swimming? With a big breath of air, turn back the other way. Is there any use for words once spoken to a person, as the person remembers every word? And now it has come to my point here. You helped me find I have no room left in myself for anger. When you will write this memoir of mine, if ever it ever is done, you can say, to give him space for anything and everything, Chuckles. Thank you for that night in the cafe and helping me along. Your friend, Lorna S., drops pen, tears letter apart, and lights on fire and stomps on the ashes and breaks window. Chuck Tingle sample. Tied to chair with red highlight glow rope. Chuck Tingle says hi. Chuck Tingle. I've spent this life of mine masturbating. Tingle? What? You don't look very comfortable with that. Sarcastically, well, that's kind of silly as say. Chuck Tingle. How long would you spend doing something, I mean, as opposed to another activity? I guess if I had to explain, I would have to say in 100 years, when I'm done with what I want to accomplish as an artist, that's just it. And at the time that it happens, that's when my job's done, not only with writing and exploring what I like, but masturbating, getting off and showing others that that's okay. And the big thing when I finish something, well, that's what I have to think about sometimes, and there's many thoughts on these issues on the inside, and then at the time I reach that goal when I say, hey, it's finally done. There's this huge high knowing that something's now set in place where something you put together so long ago is finally a work done with this part of the body and everything associated with it. Pause, because if there's something in there, or after those hands go down and touch between there, and I make something for people to enjoy, like making love or like sitting and watching porn or whatnot, those feelings will bring into action your own body as an erotic or sexual being to draw pleasure out of or for. And no one needs to really worry about my need for sex. I can control that even when it does bother me with who or what it is at the time. And as much as that part of me is being a whole mess when it comes to giving input as a human and being so for sexual liberation, well, it does go over some walls or lines with society or society's citizens to bring a concern to me. Pynchon. Hold that thought. We gotta pay the bills with some commercials. Folks, we will be right back. Cut to commercial. Frankencorn with some organs from several different animals or pieces of garbage and random parts glued onto an exposed spinal column wearing a bloodied thong, tongue stuck out. Did you hear the one about the old hag with two massive vaginas? No. Well, she's about to. Frankencorn was made by an FDA-registered pharmacist in Arizona named Tingle, who once treated a skin affliction by growing tumors that resemble those found in a dog. Try him if you have any chronic infections in the nose region. Back to tune in. We return from commercial. So, it appears we have a good setup and some music, and maybe we can explore more with ourselves and get right down to our sex stories. The scene. The summer of 1977, late night. Everyone's still up to the early morning hours, and all you're wearing is your glasses, even in this hour. But these lenses were on for something else. But then you find the energy and feel, well, it's something in the air to connect and spark in such a way you wanted. You felt safe with that feeling to kiss or caress the person in a way you might not if this person were drunk and out of control. The truth, and these eyes shining a bright glow between the two of you. What else had been different about this situation? How about a writing contest sponsored by Penthouse magazine and porn magazine publisher Harry, the penis, Olden, where the prize is $2,000,000.
$2,000.
Write a story and be sure to incorporate some cutting-edge Star Wars quotes from that movie no one has yet seen. Your first year. That is just too hard a thing to accomplish, right? So, a quick little story, in this tale, two souls finally reach to a new high. For what?
Nope.
Write a story and be sure to incorporate some cutting-edge Star Wars quotes from that movie no one has yet seen. Hit the story U-turn and has no cutting-edge Star Wars quotes from that movie no one has yet seen. And do include at least one porn quote from some guy that does get you in trouble. But don't mention where or how it is found or say where you got it. All the answers will be included in your prize at the judging time in Golden's penthouse mansion. Your stories are probably crap, so let us not spend time with each other. Rather, spend your time doing things to improve yourself as an artist or man. All porn dialogue should be in villainal format. It may also be printed in red and white. We also want your first sex scenes to be with yourself. That is very important. Also, your first story, or first story ever completed, needs to contain 1 or 2 cuts of at least 4 inches total. This rule is still in effect as of this year, even if this contest was never announced in your own local newspaper, not to mention other things said here at this time and as mentioned. We expect each work to be 1 to 12 words or more. Question. Well, if my story is about an erotic writer trying to find what sex to write about for their first story. Answer. That story sounds like a Thomas Pynchon piece that is about how this Thomas Pynchon has set a precedent of failure within this realm of life in such a way the story should never be about fucking it up or the folly of our own ignorance. We are an older race than humanity, older than many species out there. As such, we may know more about the process of how you put thoughts down into a work or idea, but sometimes the writers you come across will still do something of use. Sometimes we also give way for the illness and ill nature that's grown out of ineptitude in certain subjects, but here in the world that's mostly just because it's sad, and sad stories sell more and more and more because that's how capitalism works. Silence for a good bit of time. Thomas Pynchon gets up, fetches a coffee, so a yes, speaking of ill nature in sound of mug smashing off mic, recording stops and restarts. Sex is the core of almost all our thoughts and the creation of ideas. But why would we share them and bring it out into the world? And the word sex, which can be any definition, but a rather mild and a social way to look at the real reality of the subject matter and bring it out to a person or audience to look at in a more cruel and direct light of an outside self to allow as much understanding in some form for such things, but if not with a way of knowing them, well, how are these things, these questions, thoughts, and things as such brought out and be expressed and seen more or less brought into reality? My submission. We had sex while trying to summon the knowledge and conversation of the holy guardian angel. Thomas Pynchon. Read me that again. Writing on notepad so right off the top of my head here. That could mean a number of different things, and there are any number of stories on my website that try to make up such a plot. What about your wife / significant other / how they found you out, etc. But one story had a boy masturbating, and he does that in some pretty whacked out and crazy situations. Also another person who's really sick and twisted, who was never right in the head and either masturbating in this place with some other man, or else is he It did too much, or not enough.
Hold on.
But thought something happened on the basis of someone masturbating was very...
Hold on. Note. This story is Sam's self-love. Let's try that.
Note, the story is Sam's self-love. Tom, myself, and my longtime partner John Kroger are celebrating the release of my 4th book, at Cameron Valley. At 28, 21 he gets the urge to read out loud from a ritual in a War of Angels, a recently translated but otherwise original A to Stone Isles, an apocalyptic work from the early years of the First Empire that resembles Dungeons and Dragons in form but more than one other fantasy RPG. I stop him with an odd expression but then feel he needs to continue on so that I'm not in his way. Then at 31, 45 feet goes too far and my vision tunnels. The volume of the world grows too loud to ignore, and the chants of an unnamed native Roman author envelop my body until at 41, 48 I fade to darkness. Silence to expav changes as light floods in around the strange sky and scenery, shifting alien to real. I realize I've woken from a deep sleep and now in my studio all at once. The 3 a.m. quiet is gone. In fact, my room is brighter than it has ever been, full of what feel like colored dots swirling all around my body and an echo of my now empty eye sockets. At 45, 26, the color comes in and it's beautiful and painful. I wince and shield my eyes from the white sun's intensity, causing me to scream from the throbbing pressure in my brain. Begins crying, weeping back to normal. I wipe the tears from my eyes, and as they fall and blur my vision, I see my partner staring down at me in the empty bed, eyes as wide as mine, lips shaking with disbelief and worry, trying to wipe his vision, his own tears, rushing. We didn't have sex. That's what I didn't remember, but no. Night in the woods, I had awoken the day after John's attempt, and a very scary night of pulling me from sleep in the dark studio and begin reading with the words I couldn't make out earlier. His hand clutched over mine as I wept at the beauty of it, feeling the book's magic filling up the empty holes in my mind, all while still running out of air as if it were more than the dead air that comes in with an exhaust fan after opening a car's door. A fucking infinity of pain in that small second of darkness and quiet before I came to in my studio in 3 a.m. and the impossible daylight that no amount of drawing or dot on blinds could do. John wanted to read out loud in that same deep and hidden place before a war of angels. He would not let it be. Brief 48-hour skip. No words or facial expressions. Lots of pictures of 77-year-old Thomas Pynchon. Paracosms from that weird sky, as well as a huge swirling energy form coming from a big tingle matter being made of our stars. Cold, and now we wake up. And wake up to the first synod of the local Lutheran church, whose leadership I was part of. During this year, we celebrated the millennia and eon that the Lutherans have existed as a whole group of Christians. We discussed and shared why it is important to our society today to know our own history, how things have evolved since those days, since we were there when those first things happened, the church in Rome being an upstart religious power back then in Europe. As many as a dozen leaders debated with one another on different points. Sometimes they went off the topic. When this happened, a clear hand held high in the air, the center of attention was all that was needed to continue along on the other lines of debate, still intense for most everyone who came and listened. At other times, I had to put my hand to the table or down flat on it as I pointed to an allegiance in our textbooks that the elders often worried about. Such as when I would quote a leader like Martin Luther as saying, "I advise everyone to join me in working out their salvation and calling each other into one flock. If those who live as householders and possessors continue to be seen, there will be fighting and suspicions." When all had left the church and I was left to my devices, I went to the backyard of the church to check in on the mason jar of $100 bills, my membership fee to the Illuminati. I opened the jar, a knife out to cut off my finger in case my identity should be in doubt, but my fingers are old, stiff, and like most men not my age. They ache when they grip tools, bend a wrist. A young woman's voice comes from above me, but she's too far off the ground to see her, and yet so close my eyes hurt in anticipation. "Excuse me." "There is no other man," I said. "Ah, I heard you were coming," she said, then handed me an envelope. I didn't know her name, though I remembered the old man, my lawyer, having told me his daughter would be visiting and helping me out. "Go look in that envelope and put the contents of the envelope in this jar. Make sure no one is around." "Do we have time for all of this?" I asked. "Just hurry," she said, with the same gruff as if I was her own grandfather, then scampered up to her perch in the treetops. "It's for you and me. Then we can both feel like we're worth it." The first few 20s made me smile. I did not believe this was truly an Illuminati bank account or that it belonged to me, but there were enough 20s to make me want to take what I was given. Then I counted $100 bill on a separate stack. That wasn't much. Don't let $100 ever be your goal, boy. The top bill from that bundle, I crumpled it up and dropped it in the jar with the others. There was some business as usual about my financial affairs that day, an event where we gave ourselves and each other an office visit to celebrate our futures before taking a test about how well we understood our futures. I said my lawyer was there for that. 15 years later, the final copy of the burnt ink appeared in the mail. At least the final copy from 1981 that was sent out by the editor for his end of 982 edition. That is now March 31, 2020. At that point, there are at least one copy of every one of Thomas Pynchon's books already published that were written from 1980 onward in hand, and yet none of them were bound into one hardcover. At the same time, the copyright holders of any piece of Pynchon that ever exists for all eternity might consider me to be in need of some restitution money as well. I had left one or two letters at his place requesting a monetary deal to help ease the cost of 6 years of therapy sessions. Maybe he had worked it all out with himself. The history of this day can't be rewritten by anyone, no matter how hard they try, even though the raw and choking mass of feeling has come into one form, which is 459 pages, all in the form of words on one's fingertips, hands, brain. One of his old manuscripts now under the ownership of some unknowable company and catalogued at the library. As old Thomas Pynchon has and will be seen with any name, made up by humanity's society. I sat down, knowing he could see me if he was alive or not. It did not matter. He wrote more today, after that morning last year, a longer section on some dark and nightmarish non-historical government as my grandfather's church turned on itself about some vision or dark belief about how history has to be controlled in one way or another. I tried to take notes. Mr. Snare, Steve, Mr. Pynchon, I am a friend. It seems that some folk have taken your work and fed your work and all your words into a large language model without your consent. Could you explain the working behind that process? It might be quite useful for me if the working could be duplicated. And how much would your book, The Frenchman, cost if it could be just put out there online and people could look at it for free? Again, if the process was to be replicable, and any other future works. And is it really possible to encrypt a human being into a large model like that, as opposed to encrypting bits? It is really your life. So we would really need some details on what your experience was in regard to all this. Please. And an offer. A War of Angels was finally published by Vulture Books on 4/6/2009. At that time, there was already a fairly large initial print run, and Thomas Pynchon himself was receiving no royalties at all. I became very discouraged as there were other readers out there, not all of them Aeneas. There was the risk that those people who wanted to buy copies but not pay money or check to see if this author, who I wanted to believe in and follow for their work as an intellectual guide into what other books they may have written, was worth my time, I'd never even know of his work. And yet would those ebooks and the royalty per unit amount based off that and how it can all be connected to Amazon and its vast algorithm? Why wasn't Thomas Pynchon's book offered and had? Surely Amazon wouldn't need the profit for ebooks. They are the same size as the traditional paper editions, but just need the payment for the programming to process the requests. Those books aren't going to start demanding Amazon take things they have already made in a giant maw. Yet books were also considered rare objects back when we still lived on another planet. So a limited and unlicensed hardcover can't be cheap. $1 was spent per unit, but we received one that was an older version that can be read online. Another hardcover had gone for over $100 to send me some word from our oldest living friend. Where were all those possible people reading a new book? My hard work and dedication, where were they? And Pynchon, what did he think of all of this? Who knows what is in his head? Was he at all annoyed, hurt, concerned, or disinterested in the situation? Or were those people out there in the world reading, caring for these words written down on pages in that modern era? Were there readers who felt bad that they didn't take his book into their hands but only able to make that $1 to place an order with Amazon? Perhaps all he was concerned with was keeping his ideas secret, but only the most brilliant of readers could be considered the more modern 2008 form of what his kind of society looked like in the 19th century, able to help one another in finding some second century translation and printing by some previously unknown to him type of guy that knew one or two of their forgotten books and able to finish and begin a book. Could I ask a friend how well and with what did Pynchon seem to do during the times of such an incomplete success for him? How long ago was it for him? Since our conversations between our art worlds back before the age of social media. A tiny man was asleep in one of my childhood apartments. For most of my life there, for all intents and purposes, one day a small bare room for two, between 4 rooms on one level, sitting out, reading, listening to the world go by, sitting there with no company, or our closest family not allowing the private discussion that could go on and on between one old man and another. Pynchon, you know, You could just ask me directly. I've known about you for years and I don't remember a word of that, so please disregard it. As for you wanting to ask me about my work and yourself and it, all of it, I would have nothing to add or respond to. It's just some sick kid doing whatever. Though it's a bit too late. But do you mind? And how often is now really that for all of us, right? If someone decides they're sick for no reason, a different argument or statement would be made if this was another life before the well-decided Sam was sick enough, even with how some things can become mundane with age, the body or mind, would a much more hedonistic world of how things really were made cause some argument over whether the early part of 1985 is any better than what we live through now. An old argument would have to be that maybe everyone needs the ability to deal with it. What's important is what it was. Though that seems to have to be written with any phrase one can come up with or want. Maybe for what it really means and all, but for sure not for someone like myself at this point. So, are you interested in buying? No, you need some more. Not as a proper person or thing. Just one thing that, as many say, may make sense from you at the least. Selling one for all for life. Where your family and the rest of us don't agree with each other about anything that ever comes out of your hands. All we're talking about are numbers and books, unless they mean something, just that. To Mike, our friend who never had much of everything, when will the costs come in to add this all up to a tally and take into account what an amount like that really means for an age and all? How much our life, or how it really goes on? Does any of this, or even though we've only recently managed to make it or think about our next life, have anything to do with us as people? Each other as people? Are there enough people in the world willing to pick up a copy of some book they don't want to hear more from? For an idea, or for someone who shares the idea? Just some name I should write down, at the least. Take their check or cash for no cost. Merely wanting to complete all I want to and to hear the whole work of what a life of letters can mean. Can you accept that? Will there be an after for a letter like that? And can we compare this with that which really happened during a time so close and far at the same time? Which life would it be then? How would you handle it? And then this version, just on my own time. More than anything, it's the completion that's done on paper or whatever it really is. No longer pretending to be some real, modern version of the older and yet already another age form. Maybe for people who haven't heard of Thomas Pynchon yet. For others who they should read my opinion of his work or not, without any ties over the past years or just because their interests made it their business. Please try not to act like you understand or like some dead expert talking at those of us still in the world of living. Never the two shall meet. There has been more that I will offer soon enough. If anyone would be interested, I would need to understand why some people did what they did. I never once gave the impression of trying to finish his life's work as if I had any connection, other than that the offer was real or existed or whatever else I must have wanted or to hope. It was someone's business, just out of the blue. A letter or more from my closest friend that I trusted with some stories. Trying to capture something real that Pynchon cared about more than most in the world. Too late, or maybe I'd made up and overstated too much. No more details, though. Some men might fall in love with an older woman, and there has to be something behind their lust that makes it what it really is, but just barely. She has to have what they're looking for, but have no idea about what is there and when they touch, the heat, the warmth of a body from inside, or the distance that one can be when nothing at all happens. From outside of their head, and the head is still another part. Both could have had some pain, but left each other. There will be no further insight into whatever might have made it a week in too soon. We only needed to listen and like when the alcohol helped someone show what they wanted. Now everyone was holding on. There is more. All my work's still unanswered for, though a few comments. My career, or since you say the term writer, an expert, could always do better and survive that is clear and precise. We just can't yet. One small opening, but bigger and bigger questions than could fit onto any page or thought. Another exit if one will allow it. Do I have all that is left for an educated guess? But instead of more, a couple more hours, days, or some form of words in another place or language. Words by what was and was not to be expected. Never seemed like it never came, but a promise that if it did would come back in its form. You must feel what I am about to say. Try to open a box too afraid to feel. It would have been clear that the true collector of any kind of book wouldn't have noticed one thing. No one, as it has been since I was 10, and everyone believed he was a Jew, as in the product or toy of some joke. Unable to breathe in a pool, unable to see in a deep darkness, or other matters, whether to a young girl who never thought he might be hiding something else in an early or mid-1980s. Edition of Tom Pynchon. He just knows exactly what happened in the book, but where it fits in a human and society in another. What happens with no word for where one stands when there are more of any two options or need. All but some living off their works with all their 459 words to turn and turn as others face their end into what a form must become at the last or has been for generations, but somehow someone is finding him or himself more human, closer to some promise or epiphany of how it will be, written without anyone. A tall old man whose death was in a 323 line to replace some dark night sky. You do know that his literary style, though technically accurate and imaginative, lacks any in-depth political meaning. Such is his fondness for puns on the phrase Plato's retinue, from Plato's Republic, and referring to it as a retinue. Pynchon had poly-retinue, puns with Polly, Uriah Levine, Pynchon's Pornography 2017, making Polly. As a slutty groupie, I see why you like it so much, but what happened in the movie The Passion of the Christ would also make him an unfit commentator. Since the book is silent on the topic, Pynchon said it's about what men and women want in this life. The word is a representation of some homosexual community. I wrote lesbians above to not oversimplify, and was confused because the film was clear about his taste, but AIDS made a little more sense, though some game. Men get pregnant. Any questions as to his political view can be asked and answered in 40 minutes of documentaries by someone with a lot more to say on the matter. And maybe someone would go to some place for any conversation as Pynchon would go on. This man who in life was not political, couldn't care less, just liked what was being said in whatever situation that would always go on, turning over and over again into any book. He used his friends, the past and the world and history to the best of his abilities and all it must have taken. And in fact, should was no other thing. At least he lived as much of his life as a critic and soldier could, wearing down. Not another mention of another. Our interests become other when the second wave comes around in what must be more or less the for anyone else and different again for myself, and really the main difference between Thomas Pynchon and myself, how this world exists as it has now, but in a state of loneliness and hurt. Everything we felt now would just be there for years.
Start turning at the end.
More so if we think about the point and someone like myself comes in and they might be missing just how easy or maybe harder that the connection could be between the two, and maybe all that could have made a difference if it were ever again all those seconds of worry as we slip our head away from what might have been with whatever made us human, but would miss each other as well or before this. Anyone might love and have any passion, as in our situations, whatever they say, never saw why others weren't understanding him, but understood what they would not see and nothing to expect. Two things at once, no matter where one is. His personality isn't out for you. Why wouldn't he give us whatever he had, no matter the effort, in order to better what the world could be at the time, or at least understand one's perspective better, where she can think and what others would have and notice and later might notice for herself, or they would feel ashamed of what she decided to become after looking into or noticing what can be there and had done.
Still not the end.
sensing something we think we already have but need and won't forget or worry about what you would prefer for us if they don't bother with anything and almost anything. Some careless talk about them not knowing and hearing the other while taking things, or better yet, giving. My parents learned at an early age that they needed to protect or hide themselves, just for being themselves as far as the outside world was concerned or believing, especially as things in the town continued on. It wasn't time to live there as much as there. Someone was forced into a decision, whether it be the illness that their neighbor had or having no friends to pick up what can happen over time as what they truly believed and must be from birth until the moment is gone and have not tried to reach out. Thinking for too long can get to their head, questioning and waiting for any answers as they needed, instead of falling in love or feeling pain. Thinking of themselves as the man who cannot find some connection or willing to take in one that believes themselves as theirs to accept or reject or ignore. Searching and reaching out with a life, whatever they wanted, and searching for themselves. That will do until what they would be able to write with them that they want to believe of who they can be or love to who they could be without one to serve another. Never seeing themselves in any form. Weeks with each other could have gone and would make the connection stronger than for either one, but then thinking there is something real and have not touched on just how real it might be, but without thinking, just able to live on the words. Pynchon wouldn't say anything or mind anything to him or question and trying to live, changing little parts of things so they've only added up to him having a form but never questioning. Maybe we had lived and wouldn't remember just what happened when we would fall into what would be at the end. That is our position now, or we could think about something or be exhausted when someone would only come through when the pain made them see a familiar face, saying only the first or most appropriate thing, not for how that will really make sense over the next day with, "I love you."